right now, none other than the lead analyst for CBS from Detroit, getting ready for the Vikings and the Lions game on Thanksgiving Day. Phil Simms join us. Big Phil, how you doing?
Paul, I'm doing well. How about you? I'm just, some guest list. Dirk Cutter, Adam Gase, both coming on the show. I love it.
No pressure for you, buddy.
Yeah, a little pressure. Yeah, that's right. I'm not on a winning streak like those guys are. So, but good for them. Dirk is. I've known him a long time, and to see Tampa Bay turn it around, how they have the last couple of weeks, and Adam Gase. I always told people, don't be fooled by how he looks. He's a tough guy.
Right.
You look at him; he's young and all that. He can lay the law down when it comes to talking to players and everything, and they've responded very well down in Miami.
So, who's the least tough-looking NFL coach?
The least tough-looking NFL coach? I don't know if I'll quite get into that.
All right. We'll do a 180 back into football here. And just before the break, and before we talk about your game coming up tomorrow between the Lions and the Vikings, the guys were asking me to put my quarterback lens back on and think about this question. I ask it to you. If you were quarterback in the NFL right now, would you rather have Zeke Elliott and Des Bryant start a team that way, or the entire Cowboys offensive line?
Cowboys offensive line.
Not even tough. Not even a tough call.
There. I would just look. I did a Dallas Cowboy game this year against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a pretty good defensive front. So I've probably watched at least half of their games, all their games on TV, but half of them on coach's tape or whatever. And it's one of those things. Once you get done watching, you go, "Wow!" I don't know if people are going to want to hear me talk on TV so much about an offensive line. But to me, when I was getting ready for the game, I said, this is the story. And I just remember going, the center, Travis Frederick, and Zach Martin, a right guard, I'm thinking, I've never seen two guys dominate the line of scrimmage and do the things they were doing on offensive line in a long, I'm not going to say ever, but in a long, long time. And it's incredible. And the Cowboys, I talked to a lot of new coaches around the league and general managers, and they all say the same thing. A lot of them, not all, but most, kind of bring up the Dallas Cowboys. And it's always, we want to build the team from inside out, because getting that offensive line straight and your defensive line straight are the two hardest things to do. And there's one thing, Paul, that you cannot overcome in the NFL, and that's an average offensive line, because every week is just, what are we going to do? What can we count on? We can't count on getting time for the quarterback. So what plays do you draw up? Well, you got to be careful. Now you can't drive the ball down the field. It just goes on. And every time you look up, it's 3rd and 8, which in the NFL is just, it's impossible now to hold some of these pass rushers out in obvious long passing situations.
Yeah. Now, knowing how strongly you feel about the offensive line, does it lessen the credit that you give to Dak Prescott?
No, it doesn't. And mainly, forget that he's a rookie. If he was a veteran quarterback, if Tony Romo was back there having a great year and doing what Dak Prescott is doing, I wouldn't lessen what he was accomplishing. So why should we do it to a rookie quarterback? Let's give credit to it, that how hard it is and how much he has to learn and all the other things that go along with being a quarterback. And I will say this, we didn't get a chance to talk as much as usual about quarterbacks during the offseason, but Dak Prescott, Dan Mullen, the coach at Mississippi State, really runs a pro offense. They do all the concepts. They got everything going on there. They're in the shotgun a lot, of course. But when I watched him, he was playing NFL football down there at Mississippi State. And he got hit. Believe me, he got hit much more his senior year at Mississippi State than he's going to get hit this whole year in the NFL. And I actually said it to him when I saw him, and he just kind of laughed. He goes, well, you can say that. I'm not going to say that, or whatever. But it was true. He played under such pressure and still performed well.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that jumped out about him, two things. He had experience, big school, great competition he played against and all that. But the size, just look at him. I mean,
Huge.
He's built like a Mack truck.
Yeah.
And, that's something you can count on. His mobility and his size are two things that
Right.
you can count on him as a quarterback, and the throwing's been pretty good too.
Paul Burmeister sitting in for Dan Patrick, talking to Phil Simms of CBS. Phil will call the Vikings and the Lions tomorrow. You talk about Dak Prescott's size.
You have fancy glasses on like Dan Patrick wears?
I couldn't find them on the desk here, Phil.
No designer wear, probably about $550 a pair. No, you didn't have those. Okay.
Jacket issued by NBC SN is all.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned how big Dak Prescott is. I remember talking to you about Andrew Luck when he came out in the draft, and you kept coming back to how big he was, and that's something, like you just said, that you can count on. Now Andrew Luck may or may not play tomorrow night against the Steelers. He's in concussion protocol. We'll find out, I guess, at game time if he's out there. It kind of led a conversation between the Danettes and myself about hiding injuries and how players do it now, and how would you do it with an injury like that? Did you ever find yourself in a situation when you were playing for Bill Parcells and the Giants where you had to or tried to hide this kind of injury?
Well, it was a different era, and just a different time. We were not talking about concussions back any of those years, 80s and 90s, and even in the late 70s. It was not talked about, and it was just like, oh, you got a headache. Oh, you can't play with a headache, you big baby, or this, that, and I really don't ever remember a player being held out of a game or not playing because I can't even remember guys being diagnosed with concussions.
It wasn't a topic.
So I would say this: no, I never hit an injury. It didn't matter. And, I broke my hand one time, first game of the year. It was my left hand. And they looked at me and they said, yeah, your hand's broke. The x-ray, I said, oh, my gosh. And then they looked at me and go, your hand's not broke. And I said, what? You just told me it was broke. He goes, no, you understand what we're saying? Your hand's not broke. Don't want to hear another word about it. That's it. Your hand's not broke. Oh, okay. And I don't want to see any bandages on it. I don't want to see it taped up. And I don't want to hear a word about it.
Right.
Okay. And that was the end of that story. So.
And there you go back in. Yeah.
You go. That's the way you play. And not that it's changed much. Something like that you'd still play with nowadays. That's not a big deal. But trying to hide a concussion, pretty hard to do. And especially, I saw the hit that caused it with Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
And the symptoms now, I don't know what it is, but the symptoms and these concussions, I don't know why it's gotten worse. I know the game is faster and all that, but it seems like so many of them come, Paul, from what? From the quarterback or the player falling and their head hitting the ground.
Hitting the turf.
That's where it seems to. I see a lot of those. I just go, man, I played on AstroTurf, and I don't know. It seems to cause a lot more concussions than we had in the past.
Yeah, if teams were playing on natural grass, you wonder if we would have as much of this right now.
Well, that's a good discussion. In this modern day and age, and a lot of people get mad because they run this field turf company or whatever the turf is called nowadays. But on natural grass, you know it. You played college football. When that game, I say it to players all the time, and they say when they play on natural grass and the game is over, their aches and pains are not even 10% of what they would be if you play on artificial turf.
Paul Burmeister sitting in for Dan here this morning, talking to CBS lead analyst Phil Simms. Let's get into a couple of the games tomorrow. How do the Redskins find a way to beat the Cowboys, Phil?
Well, they're going to have to do it with their offense, of course. That's very evident. How about our boy Kirk Cousins, man? You talk about a quarterback that's letting it go. He lets it go. He sees it, believes it, and throws it like he knows he's going to put it right down the middle of the plate. And his control of the football has been fantastic. He's now playing, and quite a while this year, playing like he did at the end of last year. It was awesome. And his accuracy the other night on the deep balls was tremendous.
Terrific, yeah.
And they're fun to watch. His style of play, Jay Gruden's play calling. Jay Gruden's an old. Well, I'm gonna be careful here. He's just an old bitter ex-quarterback. He puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, expects them to do well because that's how he played. He was tough and did all that. And, he had great success being a college quarterback and even in the Arena League or whatever. So
a lot of it.
Washington has to beat Dallas. Dallas's weak spot is their defense. The question is, do you get enough chances at their defense?
Right. As for your game, though, Phil, you're in Detroit, Lions, Vikings. Finish this sentence here for me. The Lions have won 5 of their last 6 games, Phil, because what?
Matt Stafford.
MVP?
Bingo.
Is he that good?
Well, he's not going to get the MVP because his numbers are not going to match some of these other guys. But what he is doing, it used to be just about Matt Stafford and the great throws down the field to Calvin Johnson. Paul, now it's real. It's kind of fun. I'm sure it's fun for him. He even told me this yesterday. He has to go out there and physically do it, but now he's got to play this working man's game because he doesn't get great protection. They can't run the ball at all. So he's got to play a different position than he's ever really played in the NFL. And he's doing it. He's tremendous at it. And then when you put him in situations where he has to make a great throw, you know it, I know it.
He can do it.
I don't know if the public knows it, but he is an unbelievable thrower of the ball. And, I mean, he can do it sideways, over the top, anywhere you want it. And when you give him those opportunities, Minnesota Vikings, he makes that last drive, they kick the long field goal, and they beat him. Well, they made the great mistake, which you can't do against good quarterbacks in the NFL. A big situation, they rushed 3, they gave him extra time, and he drove about a 30-yard in cut down the field, and you couldn't even see it on the film. He threw it so hard. So, and that won the game for him.
Right.
It's to put him in position to win. So it is about Matt Stafford when you talk about the Detroit Lions.
This doesn't mean he's the best quarterback in the NFL, Phil, but listen to you describe him the way he's throwing. Is he the most gifted when it comes to just naturally raw throw of the football?
I would put him and Aaron Rodgers in the same class. We always get lost on Aaron Rodgers because he's a little different. They've been winning more. He's won a Super Bowl. He probably can get rid of it maybe a little quicker. But the thing about Matt Stafford, he's got all the throws, all the angles, and he's running the route a lot more than he ever did in the past, which is really good. And it's people just don't pay attention. And he is truly, like I said, we'll show it tomorrow. We'll make a little package of all the sidearm throws, throw them with people on him. He throws around them, whatever it is. He can do that. And he's matured. He truly is the leader of the team. And it's really been fun to watch. And it'll just be interesting to see if they can get their team, if they can catch fire. In other words, can the defense live up to what I thought it was going to be when the season started?
Right.
They got good corners. Can the defensive front start doing what they're supposed to do? And what I mean by that is pressuring the quarterback more, because I know the quarterback's going to hold his end up of it. That's for sure.
Phil Simms, lead analyst for CBS, the NFL on CBS. He'll be on the call for Vikings and the Lions tomorrow. Phil, happy Thanksgiving, buddy, and thanks for spending time with us.
All right, I got one question for you. Do you feel smarter since you're sitting in Dan's chair? Well, answer that.
I feel the pressure, Phil. I got to be honest.
There's no pressure.
Are you kidding me?
Come on. There's no such thing as pressure. You know what? You just got to go out there. You can't be Paul. You're an ex-quarterback. You cannot be afraid of throwing a couple interceptions, man. Come on, just let it go.
I didn't say I was afraid, Phil. Come on. I just said I feel the pressure. And I'm going to keep looking for those glasses that might actually make me look smarter, okay?
Oh, there you go. All right, look, great talking to you, Paul. See you down the road.
Phil, thanks for your time. Always good to talk to you.
Okay, bud.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.